Hi everybody, this is Linda Israel and I'm here to share with you some die-cut butterflies that I got from the digital downloads at Brutus Monroe. I'm on their design team right now through December, and this is the card that I made today. I used a little bit of the paper that I had on stock and some other supplies I will show you in the video coming up. Make sure that you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and of course come to Brutus Monroe's website and follow the design team for all of the creations that we're going to be making over the next few months. I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks for stopping by and watching my channel. Before I started the video, I picked out some K & Company two-sided paper because, you know, I own both sides, so I can use both. And I cut out the butterflies from the digital cut files at Brutus Monroe. So I have those cut out already, and that's these over here. I've already went around the brown butterflies, some of them with some distressed ink. So I'm going to do this last one that I haven't finished yet. Sometimes they're hard to pick up. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this and just go around the edge. Place that back down. I've already gone around the colored butterflies, so I'm going to use a marmalade, spice marmalade distressed ink, and go around the edge of that. It just gives it a little bit darker edges. Okay. I want to do some distressing to this pink, and then I want to put some distressed ink around this one. I'm going to go ahead and do this one first. So since I have the spiced marmalade already out, just going around the edges just a little bit. I'm going to set that aside. And what I did was I just took and made some little tears. I don't know if you can see those every so often around my paper. This is a scrapbook paper, text weight, so it's a little bit easier to tear. It also has a white back or core. It will absorb the distressed ink pretty well. So I'll just go around the edge of that. So it'll give that worn look to it. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to take a couple of stamps and stamp over that. I'm going to use the frayed burlap again. This is what happens when your other stamp pad lays on top without a lid. Catastrophes happen in the art studio. Alright, so I'm just inking up this Stampability stamp. It's one of my favorites. It's well loved. And I'm just going to stamp it a couple of times. Just enough to give it a little bit of texture. And then this is a stamp in the hand, just some text. It's not necessarily readable, but it's just something. Okay? So we have that. And then I'm going to crumple this up and then smooth it back out just a little bit. So it really looks distressed. And I've got a blending tool, so I'm going to ink that up. And I'm going to go around the edges to give that a little bit of distressed on the edges. So we have distressed edges on that one. Set this aside. The thing I need to do next is to clean this off in my fingers so that I don't get smudges everywhere. I'm just using a baby wipe. Alright, the next thing I would like to do is get the saying prepared. So I've pre-cut part of my papers. I like to leave them a little bit long because I don't know if I'm going to get it centered. So I'm going to stamp this with a frayed burlap distressed ink. I'm just inking this up. Kind of get this lined up to one side. Try to eyeball it. I'm going to hold that on there for just a second so the ink can absorb into the paper. And then you have an inked image. Oops, might help if I put it in the camera shot. I need to trim this because I've got too much on this side. And I've got a little bitty paper cutter. Cut off a little bit on this side. Right about there. And now that I know how long this one needs to be, I'm going to trim up my next pieces. I'm not exact. I'm not like those people that have to measure every stinking thing unless I'm trying to do a whole bunch and I'm conserving paper. I have plenty of paper. If you haven't seen videos of my studio space, you probably should see some of them because I have lots of paper and other supplies. That has been trimmed down. It's ready to go for the next step, which is to distress the edge a little bit. I want to put some brown. And the trick to this is try not to get your fingers in that freshly inked edge, or you'll end up with fingerprints. Got that one. We'll do the spiced marmalade. I'll put a little bit, I'm going to use the blending tool on the pink. Otherwise it's too overpowering, I think. Just a little bit. Wipe off the surface again. I've failed in the past to wipe off the surface, and then when I went to assemble my card with a nice pristine white back, and it ended up whatever color I last used on my distressing. So clean up your station every once in a while. Alright, I'm just using tacky glue by Aleene's. I like to use just plain white tacky glue to assemble my layers. When I'm just sticking paper to paper, it works great for me. It gives me a little bit of fudge room. If I didn't get it placed right in the center, I can move it around just a little bit. I can flatten it out. If you're real anal about it not laying perfectly flat, I'll take a block and lay it on top of it for a few minutes until it dries, but it usually dries really flat for me and I don't have any problems with that. So I'm going to just take some more of the Aleene's glue. I'm going to start assembling all of my pieces. Alright, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to assemble this to the front of my card mat. Again, I'm just using the white glue. And I don't want this to be perfectly all the way around. I want it to have some texture, so it's going to be raised in some places. I know I do want some brads in each corner. This is a really thick piece of foam core. And I have a pointy tool. I'm going to poke each of the four corners. I'm going all the way through both papers. Then I've got these little orange brads that I'm putting in each of the corners. So I like to poke all the brads through, make sure they're all in the holes, and then I flip the whole thing over. I haven't really had a problem with the brads falling out before I flip the paper over, but I'm also putting two pieces of paper together, so there's a little bit of bulk there. What I do find is sometimes it's hard to split these open, so I take this same pokey tool, and I have found that if you pry it between the prongs, then you can get them open pretty quickly without having to try to do it with a fingernail and then break a fingernail or have the brad go up under your fingernail. That's not very pleasant. It hurts. We don't like to hurt when we do art unless it helps make the art better. I guess if you bleed just a little bit on your art, it might make it worth something. The brads are put around. Let's address these butterflies. Hello, how are you? Oh, I don't think that's the kind of addressing we mean. I want to add a little dimension to the butterflies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score down each side and then up the butterfly rings, and that'll let it bend just a little bit. So down the sides, the wing, and then that'll let it bend. See there how it's going? And then I bend it that way. So it gives it a little more dimension. And we'll do that to all the butterflies. It goes really quickly. Notice I'm keeping the butterflies that matched. When I cut this on my Cricut design space, I brought in the first image that I knew was going to be out of the decorative cardstock, and then I duplicated it and made it just a little bit larger because I knew that if I did that, it would make a nice little shadow to go behind my butterflies. And voila, there's a nice little shadow. Now it's time to adhere these to one another. So again, taking my white glue, I'm just going to put a little line of the white glue on there. And I am placing these not perfect on top, but just enough that they're nice and straight. Do the same on each one. What I like about these digital cuts is even though I didn't have any of the Brutus Monroe stamping or other design items, I was able to go in and pick these butterflies and use what I had on hand. And they didn't have to have the stamps. I think they have just as much interest making them out of the two-sided paper. I can see me using these with the papers that I kind of hand make, if you will. I color all the paper and then dye everything and then stamp on it and then die cut them. So that would be kind of cool. So I've got a white 8.5 by 5.5 sheet of paper that I've scored and folded in half. That's inches. I'm just using the white glue again on the back side of my matted card that has the brads. I'm going to put this on the front of my card, like so. I want the thinking of you to be popped up, so I'm going to use some little 3D dimensional squares. Put on the back. Sometimes I use more than two because it may sag in the middle. We got a couple of those. Like this. It's starting to come together. We're putting the thinking of you. Now we've got the butterflies. I want to arrange these so that they're not touching too much. Alright, I think that's how I want them on here. So I'm going to use the three-dimensional dots again. Put one under each of the butterflies. And I like doing them a little bit at a time because that way I know that I have the placement where I want them. Seeing the wings are coming up. Like so. Now when I was digging around in my supply stash, I noticed that I had some distress stickles. So I think some distress stickles are in order for these butterflies. I have some pink and I have some orange. And I want to make sure that I've got the pink coming out pretty good. Okay, that looks like it's going to come out pretty good. So I'm just going to put some down in the valley here and up the antennae like so. And then I just made a few little dots because the distressed ink or distressed stickles bloopers, it will spread just a little bit and they won't be near as shiny as the other glitter stickles out there. I'm going to do the same thing with this pink one. Putting a little dot here and there. Okay. And let's change colors. And let's do the orange. So we're going to do the orange up here. Gotta make sure it gets come down. I should have put that on my paper towel first, because if you don't, it seems like it always comes out way too fast. Am I the only one that happens to? Alright, so I'm going to put my hands in the paint, so I'm going to come around. Alright, that is my card. I made one earlier that is already dry. So you can see that the stickles are dry on there. Do they look the same? Pretty close. If not, perfect. That is how I use the die cuts, the download files from Brutus Monroe. See, I've got to get it right. I got to start saying it. For the next 4 months, I'll be on the inspiration team. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please comment below what you thought about it. Give it a thumbs up. Share with your friends. Definitely come over to the Brutus Monroe website and check out all the digital cut files that they have there, as well as the butterfly stamps that go with this design. Have a fabulous day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.